And welcome back, everybody. This is edition 2 of our Sports Ethos Steals and Busts series. The hope is to do 6 to 8 of these, depending on how much time we have and whether or not ADPs move so much between now and later that we can even get into it. I am Dan Besbris, host of Fantasy NBA Today. I'm joined by Steve Vidovich once again, the director of content at SportsEthos.com. Do what the kids do. Say it at the beginning of every one. Please click like. Please subscribe to our YouTube page. I will remind you again later in the show. We're doing so much more video stuff this year. That's basketball, baseball, football. We've got a Fantasy 101 series that's coming shortly as well. It's going to be a wingding, but let's dive straight into round 2. Steals and busts, as I must outline here very quickly, doesn't mean that we do or do not like a particular player. There was a little bit of confusion on episode 1. In the comments section, someone was like, how can you possibly pick Giannis? And we're like, well, because without a punt, he's not going to hit his ADP. That's what it is. Like, if you're punting, then throw that nonsense out, because then you're playing by a different set of rules. So if you're playing by a 9-category set of rules, which is the way we're breaking this down right now, we will be picking our steals and busts based on that. We'll also provide some analysis on how we get to them. Steve, good day to you, sir. You give us our first potential bust of round 2.
All right. Well, I'm going to once again throw a player's name out who's one of the most exciting young players in the league.
You
And one of the faces. One of the faces of the league. I guess, I'm just, curmudgeon over here. But I'm going to throw John Morant's name out as a potential bust. He's going at around the 18th overall selection, according to Yahoo right now. And he's just hasn't been there in his career, hasn't been close actually on a per game basis. So he does have the popcorn stats. He's a great real life player, one of the best in the league. But he just has too many holes in his fantasy game to deliver second round value. Add in the fact that the way that he plays, I believe, gives a susceptibility to injury that we've seen the last few seasons. And while those might be freak and he could play a full allotment of games, I'm going to hold that, slight ding against him there. But mainly it's just the deficiencies with his full stat line.
Yeah, I mean, you said it, like it's one of those very weird players where they are way more exciting in real life than they are for a 9-category fantasy player. And it's hard because even when you say it, you're like, this is a guy I really want to watch play. This is a guy I'd love to have on my team, except would you want to spend a second-round pick on someone who, even last year, when it felt like he was doing everything in 9-category leagues, he was number 49. That's the first pick of the 5th round at 27.5 points per game, at 6 boards, at almost 7 assists. You can see the numbers in this screen that I'm trying to scroll with us here. He did everything last year, and he shot 49% from the field, but the free throw percent is a drag. The turnovers are pretty high. He doesn't hit many three-pointers. Steals and blocks were actually a little bit better last year than previously, but not something that's going to carry him necessarily. So it's really weird to look again at a guy that says 27, 6, and 7, basically, and say, this is a guy that's probably not going to hit his mark, but I actually happen to agree with you on that one. My bust in the second round is it's sort of a different monster, where I'm going a different direction in that this is a guy that actually could potentially get to his ADP if you're assessing by totals, but on a per game basis, I don't think that there's almost any chance he gets there. And that's Bam Adebayo for the Miami Heat. He last year was someone that I actually looked at in a lot of formats because I thought, all right, well, even if he takes a slight per game hit with the different guys coming in for Miami, he'll play in enough games to make up for it. And you can see he did average 19 points, 10 boards, 3.5 assists last year. And as I scroll down, only played in 56 games. It was really the first time in his career that he hasn't been a true Iron Man. He played in every game between 2018 and the end of the bubble season before finally missing a couple of games a year after that. Kind of expected after the Heat made the bubble finals. But then this last year, missing 26 games, that hurt. But more than anything else, what hurt is that his assists dropped by 5.5 to 3.5, even though his other offensive stuff was higher. Usage actually was up a little bit from the shooting perspective. He wasn't initiating as much. You're going to see more Tyler Hero as the Heat grow. You're going to see the same amount of Jimmy Butler and Kyle Lowry. You're probably going to see more Victor Oladipo this year. All of that stuff cups into Bam's ability to initiate an offense. Nothing else last year was all that out of character for him other than the missed games. And when all that was rolled together, he was number 39 on a per game basis. So to me, this is a guy who profiles much more as a mid to late third round pick. I think he probably will be a bit more durable this season than last year, but I just don't see how he gets into the mid 20s or early 20s, really. His ADP is 22.2 right now, where he's being drafted. That is my potential bust of the second round. It's, again, maybe not entirely fair if he plays a ton of ball games, but per game wise, he's not getting to that mark, and he's almost definitely not getting past it. Steve, who's your steal of the second round?
So with the steal of the second round, I decided to go with Anthony Davis. Now we're talking, injury risk. I just talked about Ja Morant. Anthony Davis seems to head to the locker room every single game. So there is a injury risk built in with Anthony Davis. But I believe that getting a guy in the second round who has legitimate first round upside is a potential steal. The free throw percent is the biggest concern. Is that going to come back from where it was for the majority of his career besides the last couple of seasons? I will guess that it will. I guess that his percentages will come back overall. And I want to get a guy who, if the Lakers are good this year, it's going to be because of Anthony Davis. And I think you're getting a guy in the second round who legitimately could finish as a top 5 per game fantasy player.
Yeah, it's pretty rare that you can find someone in the second round that has been the number 1 player in fantasy in their career. That those guys tend to stay in the first round. Jokic, obviously, James Harden in the first round, Kevin Durant in the first round. The only guy I think in the NBA right now who has been number 1 in fantasy and isn't going in the first round is Anthony Davis, who you just talked about. Do you think there's any hope that the free throw stuff comes back? Where does he profile for you if it doesn't come back?
If the free throw percentage doesn't come back, I think that he could still find a way to be a early second round, maybe even sneak into the very tail end of the first round in per game value. I do believe the free throw percentage will come back, but even if it is where we've seen it the last couple of years, I do believe that his other production can allow him maybe, let's say, conservatively a top 15 per game player.
Yeah, I love drafting guys like that where the floor is basically where they're getting drafted, minus, of course, the possibility for catastrophic injury, which is out there for him. But a good point was made actually in the chat room, and I'm not going to do it much that because I want to keep this thing going. These are quick hitters, but a lot of the guys in the second round are pretty significant injury risks. Anthony Davis, LeBron lately has been much more dinged up. Paul George has been extremely hurt basically since he got to Los Angeles. Kyrie has had all of his stuff. Kawhi is still technically in the third round, although we'll see if that holds up until draft day. But certainly of all those guys, the only one that's been number 1 is your guy, Anthony Davis. I'm going to give my steal in the second round. And I think I'm betting that one of the comments we'll get here is that he's not really going in the second round anymore. He's hanging on by a thread. By a thread, he's going in the second round. His ADP is still like in the mid-teens, but in most recent drafts, you're seeing him go more like 13, 14, 15, so kind of towards the earlier ones. Before I give that name and throw that number up on the board, I'm going to once again do what the kids do and tell you to hit the like button. Please do subscribe to our YouTube page. This type of stuff, we're going to have all these videos. We're going to have stuff all season long in a way that we just haven't had in the past. You can also follow me on Twitter at Dan Besbris. He is at Stephen Vidovich on Twitter. You can see it on his screen over there as well. And please do check out SportsEthos.com. That's the website that's bringing you all of these videos, this dramatically revamped YouTube page. SportsEthos.com. You can also get a draft guide with the vaunted Brewski 150 available right now. My steal is to no one's surprise, and I was just glad that you didn't pick it so that you left him on the board, because when you picked Ja as the potential bust, that was that made me have to go dig in for someone else on that side. And my steal is Tyrese Halliburton, and no one's going to argue with me. This is like the least interesting name I could have picked in this second round. He's a stud. After he went to Indiana, he was an early second rounder the rest of the way. His usage looks to be increasing, especially as the Pacers most likely deal away guys like Buddy Hield, Miles Turner, and turn even harder into the youth movement. There's just sort of no ceiling for what Halliburton can do, specifically because he profiles as the rare player that could be a net positive in almost every fantasy category. Those guys always rise to the top. He reminds me a lot from a fantasy perspective of a younger Chris Paul, because he can score a bit. He passes very well. He'll hit a couple of three-pointers, but not overwhelming there. Steals, defensive stats are excellent, good in both percentages categories, which you don't often get from a point guard. The one fear with Halliburton, I'm willing to admit, is that the Pacers are probably going to be in the tank category. So he will get some rest days. Will they come towards the beginning or the end of the year, or kind of spaced throughout? So probably doesn't get to 77 games again like he did last season. But this is a guy, if you can still get him in the middle of the second round, the floor is incredibly high. The ceiling is also there. He is that rare combo of floor and ceiling that is going really where he should. And there's almost no way that this doesn't work out fantastically, other than, as per usual, some sort of massive injury. And we'll, of course, hope that that doesn't happen. Steve, thanks a bunch for another quick hitter. I'm going to do a little recap before we sign off, but we'll be back for the third round in the not too distant future. We'll get you some steals and busts there. Once again, the bust possibilities for round two: Steve had Ja Morant, I had Bam Adebayo. Our steals for round two: Steve had Anthony Davis, and I went Tyrese Halliburton. Thanks for watching our series of videos. We'll see you on the next one. So long, everybody.